I was angry because I was baby. And I couldn't understand why. I couldn't understand why what happened that morning. And I wanted to ask him what I did to his sons. I wanted to ask him why. I just.
We are about to watch the commutation hearing for a woman who took her husband's life in 1995. So she is serving a life sentence and she is asking that the board recommend to the governor to commute her sentence. I'll unpack it with the details of her appeal at the end.
Good morning, and tell us why and what you're wanting and why you think you're deserving of this.
Good morning. First, I would like to thank the board for allowing me to be here today. I waited many years for this moment, and I'm a little nervous. If it's okay with you, I would ask, may I read off my paper some to make sure I get my words right?
Yes, ma'am, that's fine.
Thank you. To answer your question, why I deserve a pardon, I am not the same person I was almost 28 years ago. It's not because I'm older, it's because I worked hard to become a person that's thoughtful and has awareness of my actions and their consequences. I'm here today because I shot and I killed my husband. I did a horrible thing, and I will forever regret the bad choice that I made that caused so much pain to our daughter Victoria and my stepdaughter Raina. I could never feel the void that's in Victoria's or Raina's heart for the loss of their father, because I caused that void and pain. I'm so ashamed of causing my mother-in-law Beverly so much grief and pain for the death of her son. There's no justification for my actions. The one thing that Victoria told me that she wanted more than anything is to know what happened to her father. And the hardest thing that I ever had to do was to tell her the truth, was that I shot and killed my husband. I'm responsible. And I needed Victoria to know that she didn't do anything wrong, that her father loved her and Raina with all his heart. I needed her to know that I was responsible. And I know that presenting myself here today, that I have to talk about some of my own accomplishments, but yet I feel uncomfortable because it won't take away the hurt and the pain that I've caused other people. But I have worked hard and I am proud of some things that I have accomplished. I was one of 20 ladies that was chosen to start a pilot program for the New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary. And I was one of 8 to graduate in the first class with a bachelor's degree from the New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary. I'm a peer minister. I visit the infirmary. I visit the elder ladies on the holidays to do life with them, let them know that they're not alone. Also, I do ministry rounds on a compound. I enjoy talking to the ladies and sharing with them and having a relationship with them, allowing them to have a safe place. And that's one of the most important things for ladies here, with finding a safe place to share things that's inside of them. Also, I'm the liaison for the Kairos community, the liaison for the Healing Place Church. I'm a reentry court mentor for the drug program.
Yes, ma'am. We have all of that in your record, and it's apparent that you have done a lot. You have done a lot. So you want to wrap up what you need to say so we can move on to the others, please, ma'am?
Yes, sir. I wanted to say that those classes, I wouldn't have been able to do those classes if I wouldn't have taken time to look inside myself and look at my own issues and deal with my own issues, which was not loving myself, and the other ones was being isolated, keeping things to myself, not believing that there was a safe place to share any of those things. I've learned a lot from those classes, especially trauma healing, because it says that trauma does not excuse your behavior. And anger management, I learned that no one can actually make you angry. You make a choice to be angry because unresolved issues that you have inside yourself. I would ask this board to have mercy on me and give me a second chance that I cannot earn because of what I've done. And my daughter Victoria said the one thing that she wants more than anything is for her mother to come home to be a mother to her in society. And if given that second chance, I'll be able to be a mother that she deserved. Also, I have a transition plan. The Parole Project have accepted my application to help me transition back into society. Also,
Yes.
I have.
Excuse me, we've got.
Now, I don't know about you, but I receive dozens of spam calls per day. So many that I had to set my phone to only allow calls from known numbers. Basically, if the contact isn't saved in my phone, I won't get the call. So this, of course, created so many problems. I actually didn't have my mother-in-law saved to my phone, so that's a story that we can get into at another time, but not good. And of course, it created issues with business calls. So I was kind of just stuck between a rock and a hard place. I get so many calls nonstop. I mean, the vast majority of the phone calls that I receive are spam calls. It drives me nuts. But then that's what I found Aura, the sponsor of today's video. And I am proud to say that Aura is sponsoring Mandoo. So I wanted to understand how my personal information was ending up in the hands of these spammers. And more importantly, how I would put a stop to it. With Aura, I receive alerts whenever my personal data is being sold on the dark web or by data brokers. Not only that, but Aura automatically removes my information from these data broker websites and helps me take action if it's exposed on the dark web. Now, this is especially crucial right now, given the recent AT&T data breach, where over 73 million customers were released on the dark web. AT&T recommends using strong passwords, monitoring account activity, and considering credit freezes or fraud alerts from credit bureaus. Well, guess what? Aura does all of that for me. And the best part is I don't have to juggle multiple apps just because a company failed to keep my data secure. Aura is always looking in the background, ensuring my safety online so I can focus on what matters most without constantly worrying about my personal information falling into the wrong hands. I value my privacy, as you all know. I'm probably one of the more private YouTubers out there, and I value yours too. You can go to aura.com. I have my link below in the description to start your 2 free-week trial. And as I think you know, the idea that we have such a renowned, prestigious, incredible company backing Mandoo, backing our channel, backing this is, I think, just a massive breakthrough. And if we can show support to them, that would be huge. Now, I didn't just do this ad. I actually signed up for a full month with their service to see if it really works before I would recommend it to all of you. And it does. I am getting a fraction of the spam calls. I got 2 today when I usually get 15, 16. So it's already made a massive difference. And if you want to help support the channel, you can use the link below. If you want to help support Aura, you can use the link below. You want to stop those spam calls and sleep a little bit better at night, you can use the link below. And with that, we'll go back into the hearing.
Mr. Myers is going to talk to us about that in a little bit, and so we'll get all of that information in just a little bit.
Yes,
So,
sir.
let's see, before we move on to the next speaker, could the staff introduce themselves there, please?
Yes, sir. Kristen Thomas, Warden.
Tara P. ARDC Manager. Afton Gaddy, ARDC Supervisor. Lieutenant S. Brown, Security.
Okay, and Warden, could you give us a little insight as far as Ms. Burns goes?
Sure. I think she kind of noted and touched on a lot of the things that she's been doing for us here at the institution, but she does work very closely with the faith-based and ministry staff working in the chapel pretty much Monday through Friday, afternoons, evenings. She does well with tutoring some of the other students in the NOBTS classes. She participates in various clubs with the Lifers Association and Toastmasters, just to kind of stay busy, throughout the day when obviously she's not at her work assignment. She hasn't had a write-up since 2008. So, she stays kind of on the right track doing what she needs to do and mentoring and ministering others. But I know Mr. Myers will touch on the parole project and her transition if she has a favorable vote to.
Okay, thank you, Warden. Appreciate it. Okay, we'll move on to those in opposition. Monica, excuse me. Okay, you have to bear with me. Those in support. Okay, here goes the names again. I think we'll have Becky, would you go first? And I'll just use your first name.
Good morning. I'm Becky Kandkar. I'm an attorney with the Tulane Law School Women's Prison Project. I'm representing Ms. Burns this morning. We had sent a notification to the board that we did have 3 speakers today. Victoria Burns Spikes, Eric Wright, and Carrie Myers. And I had intended to do a statement on Ms. Burns' behalf at the close if possible.
Okay, you can be the last of the 3 speakers. Yes, ma'am. You can be
She's the attorney, she doesn't count.
Okay, I'm being told that since you are the attorney, that you don't count as one of the 3. Okay?
Okay, thank you. Yes.
So the three that we have at this point is Carrie Myers, Victoria Spikes. And is there anybody else? That's the two.
Eric Wright, who had to appear on Zoom, I believe, because he is sick. He should be on Zoom. That's Miss.
Okay, we'll let him speak and we'll confirm that he is on Zoom.
Yes, he's on.
He is on Zoom, so we'll throw the order a little bit out of the way and
Thank
let's
you.
see, Carrie Myers, would you go next? And then we will take Victoria and Eric.
So, good morning, Board. Kerry Myers of the Louisiana Parole Project. We're here happily today to support Ms. Burns. Two things that have stood out to us consistently since we have been working with Ms. Burns for over a year now has been, one, her humility, and two, her accomplishments. Combine that together, and she has just shown that not only is she remorseful for her actions, she's prepared herself for a life beyond prison. Should she come to Parole Project will help her in that transition. We have done this more than 570 times now, and our clients, particularly those clients who have received commutations and since been released, have been extremely successful. We'll help her with her financial skills, financial management and planning. We'll help her understand technology. A lot of things have changed in 27 years. Social norms, consumer skills, goal setting, employment assistance, and day-to-day mentoring. Our case management will go to a minimum of 1 year, but Parole Project has always had a motto that once a client, always a client. So should even in the future Ms. Burns need our assistance, she knows that we would be just a phone call away. Again, like I said, she will have a mentor while she is with us in transitional housing for as long as she needs that transitional housing in that programming. So again, just going back to the fact that what stood out to us again is her humility and her accomplishments. We think she's very suited for a return. And so we just ask this board to consider the totality of what you'll hear today in support of her and grant her recommendation.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate your work and appreciate those words. Okay, Miss Victoria Spikes, who is the daughter of Helen Burns. Victoria, would you talk to us? Okay, she is here. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Glad being here.
Yes, ma'am. That'd be great.
Be honest with y'all, I don't have to read it because I don't know if I even say no. But good morning. My name is Victoria Spikes. Colin Burns was my father and Helen Burns was my mother. I'm here on behalf of my sister and myself because we want you to know the type of person that our mother is, and that she deserves a second chance. There is not an easy way to describe my life and how it was after my father died and my mother was grieving. The life I remember with my parents was memory of my dad yelling and hitting me and my mother constantly crying. But I love them both. My grandmother and my uncle Eric tried their best, but my sister and I went without a lot. My sister was older than me when it happened, so even though we both had a lot to deal with. Even things like learning how to read. My mother taught my sister as well as her nephews how to read. But when it came to my turn, it was hard because she wasn't there. So I lacked it. And it took a lot more work for me to catch up. Birthdays, boyfriends, graduation, my wedding, my children, all of those are milestones that shape the person's life. But I had to experience all that without either of my parents. But my mom was a pretty amazing woman. in every way that she could be prison. She called me at least every other day. She helped me with my homework and projects, even through the phone. She made sure we had at least 2 visits a month so that we had our quality time. She made me handmade Easter baskets every year and cards and even sent food supplies. Somehow she always knew something was wrong with me. She talked me through depression and helped me lower my faith in God. She is my rock. She inspires me to push through every obstacle because of what she's been through. No matter the hard time, she has taught me to never give up. My mom was always honest with me about anything and everything that I asked, no matter the difficulty. She has never made me think that it was my dad's fault or anyone else's. Ever since I was little, she would tell me stories about my dad and what we used to do together, like going to the lakefront and fishing, so to hang out with his friends, and how much he loved me. I'm the person I am today because of my mom. I've made it through so many difficult times just off of her. I have a job that I'm proud of. I have a husband who believes in me, and my mom wants her to come home. We just had another baby. We both want our children to continue to get to know my mom and to have their grandmother with them and through their life. I'm asking you to not only give my mom a second chance, but to give one for me. I was 4 years old when I lost my mom. And the last time that I had a parent physically in my life and physically with me. I'm a mom now, but I still need my mom.
Thank you very much for those words. We appreciate it. Okay, Eric Wright.
Good
Mr.
morning.
Wright, talk to us,
Yes.
please.
Good morning. How you doing?
Fine.
I have COVID, so that's why I couldn't make it. Sorry about that. I don't want to take too much of the board's time, and I appreciate how difficult your job is today. On behalf of my family, I want to thank you for giving my sister this opportunity before you today. I want you to know that my sister has always been one of the most important people in my life. She helped raise me. She's one of the best people I know. As I said in my letter of support, it was no surprise she ended up in an abusive relationship. That does not justify what she did. I hope you can find it in your heart to show her mercy. She is a good person and her daughter needs her. My wife and I both love and care for Helen so much, and we will help her. We will help support her in her every way if she's given a second chance. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Appreciate those words. All right, I believe that's the three designated speakers. Now we'll move on to the attorney. We'll move on to attorney, I'm gonna try Condcar. Ms. Condcar, would you
Yes.
take over now, please?
Yes, thank you very much. Good morning. I'd also like to start by thanking this board for providing Ms. Burns this opportunity. And I do want to acknowledge the pain and the grief that has been experienced and continues to be experienced by Conway Burns' family. We do understand that these hearings themselves are often a difficult and a source of pain for them as well. I know this board's work carries immense responsibility as you try to determine whether someone has grown and changed so much during their time in prison that they can or should be given a second chance. I hope this board will see today that Ms. Burns is one of those people. Ms. Burns had no prior criminal record before she went to prison, and she has not had a disciplinary write-up for the last 16 years. Before she went to prison, she was a married mother of 2 young children. She worked in a hospital, and she was a youth coach at a local community center. Today, she's a 60-year-old grandmother a college graduate who has spent the last 27 years coming to terms with the worst decision of her life and the devastation that it caused the two families, and including her own children. Ms. Burns told you a little bit about the many programs that she's enrolled in at LCIW and how they have helped shape the woman that she is. Programming like victim impact, domestic violence, trauma healing, anger management have all helped her to gain insight into her choices and how she got here. Ms. Burns also became one of the first women to earn her bachelor's degree here. She is a tutor, a reentry court mentor, a peer minister, a head usher, and she's also a trained facilitator for domestic violence groups. These are all positions of trust and responsibility that she's earned during her 27 years here. Ms. Burns has never denied what she did. She turned herself in on the same day, and she told her own daughter the most difficult words a mother can speak. You just heard from that daughter, Victoria Spikes, and about how Ms. Burns never, not ever, once tried to justify her actions or make Victoria believe that anyone else was responsible for her father's death. Ms. Burns blames only herself. It is true that Ms. Burns went through a lot, including on that day, and we provided that context in our memo, not because it justifies or excuses her actions, but because the context matters for determining whether she has addressed the programming that she needs and taken the programming that she needs in order to rehabilitate. These are all things she had to grapple with in order to grow and learn and become the kind of person that mentors others. And that is something that she has been doing here for years. I just want to note that the people who submitted letters of support for her didn't just speak in generalities about her contributions to the LCIW community. They recounted many specific stories about how she impacted people's lives. By all accounts, Ms. Burns is a deeply religious woman, and in the words of one of her mentees, she prays for you even when you don't want to pray for yourself. Beatrice Taylor described how Ms. Burns helped physically rebuild a church here at LCIW when St. Gabriel flooded. And Sabrina Monaco wrote about how Ms. Burns spent days ministering to a woman in the infirmary who had lost the will to live. And Ms. Burns' supervisor, Chaplain Gardner, has seen Ms. Burns transform during the 18 years that she has known her. In her letter, she described Ms. Burns as a remarkable leader who has profoundly reflected on her past actions and earned the respect of the admiration of both inmates and staff. As her brother Eric said, Ms. Burns is a good person who cares about people. She did a terrible thing on a single day in her life that shattered other people's lives forever. She has spent decades coming to terms with her actions. She didn't hide it. She did many things she's ashamed of that can't be justified or explained to make sense, and she lives with that every day. This board hears from many people who have grown and changed during their time in prison. Ms. Burns has done her very best. It's not just reflected in her many certificates and accomplishments, which I'm sure you've seen, but also through the way she is living her life. There is no amount of time that can make up for taking someone's life, but Ms. Burns is as ready as she can be. She's earned nearly every certification possible at LCIW to build job skills and life skills. She has a college degree. If given the opportunity to re-enter, she also has a strong re-entry plan. Thank you all for your time, and I would ask, if possible, to reserve a minute at the end for any issues that need to be addressed or require clarification.
Okay.
Is she asking for some sort of bottle? She can't, but no, she can't.
Okay, we'll move on now. Thank you for those words. And we will consider everything that you had to say. All right, we'll move on to those in opposition. And we have Monica Mims will be the first one to speak by Zoom. Yes, ma'am. You're on mute. I'm sorry.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Ma'am.
You can hear me?
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you.
Okay, I would like to say that, thank the board for allowing us to, be here today to discuss this. I'm here with my daughter, Conway's, Helen's, husband's oldest daughter. And, I want to say that this is all hard for, for me. Sitting here, watching my daughter hear what people are saying about Helen. I do have to say, Conway was a hands-on dad, and Raina has spent the last 28 some odd years of not being able to spend time with her dad or do something with her dad. That's why I'm in opposition. Her marriage, there was no dad to give her away. For some of her life struggles, there's no dad to call. Conway also was a Christian man and prayed. Um, and the way I feel about it is only God can give a life and only God can take a life. This has been extremely hard. I do want the board to know on this day when we found this out, my daughter had just gotten out of school and she had, it's been so many years, I don't know where the letter is, but there was a letter of her explaining of all the things that she was going to do for the summer with her. And, you know, because the teachers wanted them to do a letter of how she was going to spend her summer. And she put her summer with her dad because that's what she did, spent summers with her dad. And it was a heartfelt story to say all the things she would have been able to do, but because of Miss Burns' actions, she never got to do those things. I remember like yesterday, it took me, I had to come home from work. It took me 4 hours to try to figure out how to tell this child that her father, 10-year-old child, that her father was gone. She wasn't going to spend time with him for the summer or ever again. I have spent countless days, nights trying to talk to her and explain to her how her dad loved her. I understand Victoria missing her mom and her dad, but Raina doesn't have her dad anymore. And you would think that maybe it could be okay, but she's not okay. My daughter is not okay and hasn't been okay since the day this happened. Maybe something that could have happened was classes or rehabilitation things with a church or something before this happened. But right now, as it stands, it's done. And you have a child, an adult young lady, I should say, without her father, and two of three children, actually. And I could also say that I spoke to my youngest daughter after this morning, after we left, and she said the way it affected her, um, she would not want her to get out either because she was in the house and saw the pain and things that her sister experienced and that we all experience and the family. I am in constant contact with Miss Beverly Conway's mother, and she's not here today because her sister is dying and she went to be with her, and wanted us to come, but this is not a good choice, I believe. I understand the accomplishment.
Okay, could you kind of wrap your remarks up and we'll move on to your daughter, please, ma'am?
Okay, I think that's it.
Okay, well, let's hear from your daughter then. Raina.
Hi, I'm Raina. I don't believe that she should get out because I feel like part of my reason is I feel like people can visit her in jail. She can talk to people on the phone. I will never get that experience with my father again. I can't call him up and ask him any questions or speak to him. I'll never be able to visit him where he's at until I die, and I'm not going nowhere no time soon. I believe in forgiveness, but I also feel like a decision and an action was made that can't be given back. She's living and my dad is not here. I will never be able to see him again until I die and go to heaven or hell or wherever he's at. And I don't think that's fair. I don't know how I would feel if I were to be in the grocery store or somewhere and see her. It has affected me in many ways. I just personally feel like if I can't be given back my dad, why should she have her freedom? He's not here anymore. It's not like I don't feel like it's something that can be given back to me. I don't think that I'm proud of all of her accomplishments. I understand my sister has never had her relationship with her mom that she would like to have, but I believe that I personally believe that anytime you decide to make a decision to do something, you also need to think of the consequences that come behind them. And in doing that, a decision was made. She had children when she did what she did. And that decision that was made separated her from her children. And I feel like sometimes when you make a decision, you got to go with whatever the consequence may be.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, you kind of wrap your remarks up, please, ma'am, and so
That's all I say.
Okay, thank you for your appearance and your words, and we'll take those into consideration. Okay, the next speaker in opposition is Butch Wilson, St. Tammany DA. Yes, sir.
I want to thank you all for being here today and for having everyone in. On behalf of the district attorney, we respect this lady's accomplishments since she's been in jail. But everything we've heard here on behalf of this offender has overlooked the facts of this matter. She continues to put forth a version of events that was rejected by the jury and the appeals courts. She continues to say that she shot her husband. That is not what happened. That was a version of events that was rejected by the jury and by the appeals courts. And she continues to maintain it here today before this court of clemency. Not only was it rejected by the jury, but it was contradicted by the physical evidence. Mr. Burns was shot in the back multiple times, more than once. He was not shot as she claimed while he was reaching through a corridor and trying to grab her. He would have been shot in the back. Her brother shot this man in the back as he was trying to get away. This has been just a vanilla version of what happened, but the point of it has been to protect her co-defendant, which was her brother. The bottom line here today in these proceedings, I don't have a whole lot to say because I know y'all have read the facts of this case and you're aware of what really happened. But this lady showed up here today and lied to you. She continues to lie. She continues to perpetuate the same lie. She's not remorseful based upon her version of what she has to say to all four of you members of the clemency board. And on that basis alone is not deserving of clemency. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for your words, sir, and we'll take those into consideration also. Now we move on to the, as I've said before, we move on to the part where each one of us is assigned a particular case. Mr. Freeman, Pete Freeman, is the principal investigator on this case, and we'll turn it over to him, sir.
Okay, good morning. Ms. Burns, how old are you? How?
Y'all are muted, LCIW.
Can you hear us?
Yes, okay. 60 years old?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and how long have you been in prison?
Almost 28 years.
Okay, and you have a college education, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, Ms. Burns, Mr. Wilson covered a lot of what I was gonna ask. I mean, it's quite obvious from witness statements and everybody's statement that your brother shot. Your brother was fighting with him outside the band. What, is there any explanation, or do you still feel you shot him?
Yes, sir. I know a lot of things were said in court, and I know that I didn't understand. I know that there were witnesses that said that they seen whatever they seen, but I know that I pulled the trigger and shot my husband. I know that my husband is not I know that my brother was not a saint. And he did many things as breaking the law. But my brother did not shoot and kill my husband. I did, and
Was your brother with you?
no, sir.
How did he get to the scene so quick?
I have no idea.
Were y'all stalking him? Had you went over there and watched to make sure when he left for lunch?
I was in the car by myself, and I did. My thoughts was that day to see if when he went to lunch that I can go home to get my things, because I was afraid that if he see me that he may attack me again, but I was alone.
Yeah. Well, what's confusing about it, if your husband's at work and you saw him at work, why not get the kids in? Why wait all the way to lunch?
Can you repeat that again?
Okay, you went by your husband's place of work after your family went there and there was a confrontation. There was a fight at work. You went, you said you waited to watch to see him leave for lunch so you could go get your kids. I'm not trying to try to case, but it's very confusing. Why couldn't you get the kids while he was at work?
I didn't get the kids. The incident happened in my home. And when I left my home, my husband and I was in a home fighting, and
Right.
He kicked me out the front door, and I landed on the ground, and I went unconscious from that point on. And when I did get up out off the ground, I went to my car because I had keys to my car, and I had so many thoughts that they bombarded my mind that I did go on a road, like a parking lot, to try to sit and think and try to make sure that if I could see his car pass by, then I would be safe to go back home. I never had my kids.
Correct.
And when I seen my husband car pass by, I followed him because I wanted to talk to him. I wanted to confront him about the violent incident that happened that morning. and I followed him down the highway. I followed my husband down the highway, and my husband made a sudden stop and blocking the highway, and my car almost ran into him, and we stopped, and he got out the van and came toward me, and he reached in the car and he was grabbing at me, and I was afraid, and I had the gun on the car seat on the passenger side. No one was with me. I had the gun on the passenger side, and he reached in, and when he grabbed me, I picked up the gun and I shot out the window twice. I don't know where he got shot at, but I did shoot out the window twice, and then I drove.
Okay.
And
I read the whole file and understand. I was just trying to clear up some things in my mind. You've done a terrific job in prison. Everybody writes that you do real well and that you tutor and that you help out whenever you can. Tell me, out of all the classes you took, what was the best class you took? What you got the most out of?
I actually have to say it was actually a couple of them together, because the trauma class allowed me to open up and express and to learn that it wasn't my fault that I was abused as a child. And I had to deal with that because that was something that I always held as a secret that I didn't want anybody to know. And the anger management class let me know that no one can make you angry. You make a choice. And that day I made a choice, and I was angry at my husband. I was angry because of I was angry because of I was angry because I was baby. And I couldn't understand why. I couldn't understand why what happened that morning. And I wanted to ask him what I did to his sons. I wanted to ask him why. I just
There was a lot of trauma going on at the time. Okay, had one more question. How old were your two daughters? I mean, one was 10, the other lady, how old is Victoria? How old are you, Victoria?
I'm 32 now.
You were 4? 10 and 4. Okay, 22. 10. Okay.
Both of them are thin.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Okay, Stapleton, do you have any questions?
Yes, sir, I do. Ms. Burns,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
was, we all read your report thoroughly and everything. Some of the things because, you know, I'm familiar with domestic violence, and I noticed some of the things you said in your statements that you had 3 important physical abuses that took place. One of them was when you got pregnant. I guess that was with your youngest daughter, Victoria.
Yes, ma'am.
And that you called the police to get them off of you. Was that the first time that he beat you? Like, on you?
Yes, ma'am. That was the first time that I experienced his abuse when he pushed me against the house and he was choking me.
Choking you, strangling you?
Yes, ma'am. And his cousin had to help get him off of me.
Y'all called the police, so it had that you called the police to get him off, or was it just, it was the cousin helped and weren't called?
She was helping so he wouldn't keep strangling me, but we called the police. I called the police.
What did the police do about that? Did they arrest him or anything, or just talk to him, or what happened?
No, no, ma'am. I remember they said that he had left and one officer told another officer that, oh, that's Beverly's son. And they told me to come and make a report at the police station.
Did you do it?
Yes, ma'am.
You did, okay. And what year was that? They mentioned something in the report that, reported in 1995, but they couldn't find it. Would that have been about the right time when you were pregnant with Victoria?
Victoria's born in 92.
92, okay, well then that would have been a later report. It's not, I mean, Louisiana ranks #1 in domestic violence, homicide with domestic violence for pregnant women. And we've been like that for years and years and years. And so strangulation is also noted as the point when, in domestic violence, when a person's willing to kill another person. Because, you cut off their air supply. Then the second one I read was that he smothered you with a pillow and you ended up in the hospital. You want to tell me about that one?
Yes, ma'am. We was like this husband and wife playing with pillows, and he took the pillow and he put it over my face. And at first I was able to move a little, then I couldn't move, and I was kind of hitting him, telling him that I couldn't breathe. And
Yes.
he just kept pushing it down harder and harder. And finally I was able to get up, and he ran out the door, and he ran out the bedroom door, and I was trying to leave out. And then when I went outside behind him, he went outside and he came back in and locked the door with the kids. And I was trying to get in and get the kids because they was howling, they was crying. And that's when I bust the window open to try to get in to get the kids away from him, and I cut my arm up.
Is that how you ended in the hospital, or did you go to the hospital?
Yes,
So-
ma'am. I went to the hospital because of my arms and to see was anything else wrong. Because my arm was all cut up.
Then I read also that you had on the questionnaire that you had repeated head beatings and brain trauma. You want to, was that ever diagnosed, or is that something you know?
When he would hit me, he would hit me in my head, and I went to Charity Hospital, but I don't know. I had to see a neurologist and constantly see a neurologist for that, but I don't know what any of the records went to. But I was seen by a neurologist when Charity Hospital was open. I had to go because of the head injuries.
So Victoria was 4 years old when this incident happened. Well, when this tragedy happened, I'm not calling it incident, I'm calling it a tragedy because that's what it was.
Yes.
And there was the big fight and the last fight that led to you shooting him, and it killed him. So, but it seems like there was a 4-year period there that these beatings were taking place. And I just wanted to kind of get that straight in my mind. I also am confused about the brother, I don't know. I mean, you say he doesn't fit into this, other people says he does, but the beating did take place. So that was something that I wanted to find out. And also, I was very glad because I was going to ask about the domestic violence classes and the trauma classes. And it looks like you've had a lot of that to the point that you're a facilitator. Because I noticed also you had a previous marriage. This was your second marriage with domestic violence was involved. And so of course, nobody comes with a sign written on their head, you know, abuser. They, you know, when people are dating, everything's nice and wonderful. And it's later that these different things come out. And you talked about, you know, walking on eggshells in the house because you didn't know when he was going to go off, the mood swings and stuff like that. So those kind of things can cause a person to, you know, I almost have PTSD, battered women syndrome and stuff. So I was just looking, I was wondering if that was what was going on here. I don't know. It's not an excuse, but it was something that I was seeing in statements. But that's all I have to say.
Mr. Phillips?
No questions.
Hey, I don't have any questions. Are you prepared to
Vote, I'm glad to vote.
Okay.
Okay, you know, this is a very, very sad and tragic situation. And you know, I'm not as expert as Miss Carolyn is in that area. And I wish I was. I've been around a lot. I know it leads to a lot of violence and it does lead to a lot of things. I've seen it a lot in probation pro. We were very, very cautious of domestic violence. That's why we always sent them to the board before we would let them out to make sure, you know, nothing happened. But, you know, it was premeditated. It was premeditated. It was calculated. The rental of the car was just for 1 day, so it wasn't for a vacation. So 27 years, that's not a lot for taking someone's life. So my vote today is to deny.
Okay. Mr. Tillis?
My vote's to grant.
Make a recommendation.
Make a recommendation to grant her parole.
Commute the sentence.
Commute the sentence.
99.
Gosh.
What do you want to commute the sentence?
Whatever you want to commute to sentence. Do y'all want to go to executive session?
Yeah, let's go to
That's
executive
great.
session.
Okay, we've
I
got,
move to go to executive
you
session.
got a motion to go to executive session. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Roll call roll, please.
Pete Green,
Yes.
Steve Carter,
Yes.
Chuck Hill,
Yes.
Kevin Satan.
Yes.
We'll be gone for a moment to discuss confidential matters.
Okay, we have one vote to deny this. Ms. Stapleton, you ready to vote?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Okay, my recommendation today is a recommendation for to the governor for immediate release with credit for time served.
Okay, Mr. Tillis,
I concur
you concur with Ms. Stapleton, correct, with
Exactly.
what she said?
that she be released and
Okay,
credited with time served.
okay, so it really doesn't matter how I vote, but I will vote. But it's got to be unanimous in order to get what you're asking for. And so my vote would be to grant with the condition of changing the sentence to 99 years, and then you would have to come back for a parole hearing at some other time. So regardless of anything to do with this today, your petition has been denied. So thank you.
Okay, so let's unpack this. I mean, for one, I know me and a lot of you in the comments I see are not a fan of Tillis. And this is just another kind of like nail in the coffin for how I feel about that. I mean, it's just I didn't see an excuse for him not knowing the proper words to say that it's a recommendation to the governor versus just grant, and they have to go into an executive session to clarify that. It's just embarrassing. But I haven't seen anything. When you know, I don't want to go off too much on that. We just saw a hearing that really was, you know, this is why this is the new respect I have for Miss Renata. Miss Renata runs a tight ship. She would have made sure everything went smoothly, and I removed a lot of the stuff that actually went on with a lot of just very type of hearing. It was very fragmented and a lot of but when I first watched it, really my impression was it was hard for me to really tell. And you know, like Miss Stapleton said, and I had no idea, Louisiana is the highest in the state for DV. That is some stat to hold. And it does seem that the records show that he was violent, but the problem is um like the DA said, is that she lied. It's quite strange, but we'll go over through the appeals and whatnot. But it's just that they're looking for some type of honesty, and the bottom line is that she rented a car with her brother to assassinate her husband, and they did it with her children in the car with him. So they chased him down and killed him in front of their children. That's a different level. It's hard, you know, there's one thing, you know, it's just the way that it was done is very different, right? That's an assassination. That is premeditated. That is so it's now you had Miss Stapleton who was playing at the other side and doing the battered wife syndrome, but again, it's the way that it was done. I don't know. The whole thing is in a different state. We cover a lot of states. They would have granted her no problem. It would have been, but Louisiana, they take this stuff a little bit more seriously. And it was, you know, what was interesting is just, it was kind of a mess. I wasn't sure if they needed a unanimous 5 votes or just 4 or 5 to get them through. Because if it was, I'm sorry, 3 or 4 to get them through, because if it was just 3 votes that they would have needed, the sheriff's vote was so similar to Miss Stapleton's and the preacher, Mr. Tillis, that it was basically the same thing. The sheriff was saying, which is what we see at commutation hearings, this is the normal procedure, where they recommend to the governor to make her eligible for parole, which would say not reduce the sentence to 99 years, which makes you immediately eligible for parole because you served 27. And then you go and have a parole hearing. But Ms. Stapleton and Mr. Tillis were saying they just wanted her to be immediately eligible, or just to get immediately released, I guess. And I don't think we've ever seen that. I don't even know if that's a thing. So again, I'd be very curious if she didn't need the unanimous vote, because if she needed unanimous, she was done the moment Mr. Friedman said no. But if she only needed 3, then there might be a technicality problem here that, anyways, I hope you know what I'm saying, because whatever, it was just a mess. But she looked shocked. They looked shocked. It looked like they didn't really understand what was going on. I'm talking about Teen Burns. So let's go over the appeal. Now, this is the appeal actually of her brother, but we have both appeals, like with both links, and they're both basically similar. But this is this part of the appeal is where she talks now, because they were tried together. So in the tape statement, Burns, should I call her by Burns or should I call her by Helen? In the tape statement, Helen confessed to shooting her husband. Her version of events surrounding the shooting was as follows. On the morning of the offense, she woke up her child and began giving her a bath. The child cried because she did not want to be awakened so early. The victim, so her husband, began cursing Burns concerning the child being in the bathtub and crying. Burns told the victim that she was getting ready to get the child out of the bathtub, and she finished the child's bath. The victim immediately reached over Burns and lifted the child out of the bathtub and told Burns to get the child towel and dry her off. Burns told the victim that he had taken the child out of the bathtub, so he should get a towel and dry the child off. The victim struck Burns in the face. Now again, this is her story. Burns told the child to go into the bedroom, and put her clothes on and wait. The victim began to beat Burns. Again, this is her story. Burns escaped down the hall, but the victim pushed her against the wall and punched her in the face. Burns fought with the victim and stopped to pick up the child and attempted to get her keys, but the victim grabbed her and tried to break her fingers by pulling them back. The victim took away Burns' keys. Burns had a separate set of keys in her shoe. The victim continued. She had a separate in her shoe. Okay. Victim continued to beat Burns, and she continued to fight to get away. As Burns was making her way through the front door, the victim struck her and she fell on the sofa. The victim punched her while she was on the floor, striking her in the face, her head, her stomach, and everywhere his fist could go. Again, this is her story to the police. The victim struck her again and she grabbed for the door. The victim dragged Burns down the steps and into the grass, constantly hitting, kicking, and punching her. Burns heard her neighbor's door across the street close and assumed that the victim also heard this because he stopped beating her after calling her some names and kicking her. Burns went to her vehicle. She did not feel dressed because she was only wearing shorts and shirt and tennis shoes. She did not go back for the child because she couldn't get back in there. She warmed up her car, a white Chrysler Newport, drove down the dirt road. I'm not familiar with that car. Parked and cried. She wanted to telephone her boss but felt unable to because her face was messed up. She drove around for a while and decided to change clothes because her clothes were hot, sweaty, and bloody. Due to the time, Burns suspected that the victim had probably gone to work and she returned to the home. When she did not see her van at her home, she felt that it was safe to enter the home. However, she did not have the keys, so she broke a window to gain entry into the home. She changed clothes. She tried to think of somewhere to go to take a bath before beginning to look for sunglasses to cover her face. She rode around, got a cup of ice for her lip, and then waited across the street from where the victim worked. After she saw the victim pass on his way for lunch, she began following him. He was driving a white 93 Aerostar van that I am familiar with. The victim noticed Burns and sped up. Eventually, the victim slammed on his brakes in the middle of the road and jumped out of the van. Burns tried to put her vehicle in park, roll up her window, and get out of the vehicle, but the victim approached and reached through her open window. Burns tried to get out of the vehicle and managed to get a leg out, but the victim pushed the door towards her leg. Burns reached over to a seat and retrieved the gun. She held the gun so that it was visible to the victim, but he did not retreat. She then reached out the window and fired the gun, but the victim kept coming. She then shot the victim, but he still kept coming. She shot the victim again, and he fell to the ground. She left in her vehicle, went to her mother's house, and told her mother what had happened. She showed her mother the gun and told her that Burns was going to the police station. Her mother went with her to the police station. So this was the story that she gave, which, again, what the DA said, he was shot in the back. And very different than this story. And also she had rented a car, which is very different than this story. And she kind of stuck with the story, and they just don't like when they lie. And I'm not sure, actually, I don't know. I didn't check what happened with her brother, if he's still locked up. I know I should have checked, but in response to Detective Hall's questioning, Burns added the following to her account. She indicated that when she went back to her house, her child was not there. She retrieved the gun, which belonged to the victim, and when she went back to the house, she loaded the weapon. According to Burns, she fired the weapon maybe 2 or 3 times, but did not know how many times she hit the victim. After the victim fell to the ground, he threatened to kill her. When asked about the clothes she was wearing when she was beaten, she indicated that she had left a green shirt and a white towel, which she had used to wipe her mouth, in her vehicle. Detective Hall asked Burns whether she had picked up the gun when she went back to the house because she intended to find her husband and shoot him? And she answered, I intended on hurting him like he hurted me. When Detective Halls asked Burns whether she intended to hurt the victim when she parked across from where he worked, she answered, I intended to hurt him like he hurt me. Detective Hall testified that Burns' mother never produced the clothing that Burns had alleged was in her vehicle, claiming that Burns' mother, was unable to find the clothing. Additionally, she identified State Exhibit 12 and 35 and 36 photographs accurately depicting Burns' condition when he encountered her. He also testified that he spoke to the owner and 2 employees, cross-incorporated the victim's place of employment, and verified the victim had worked there and had been at work on the day of the offense. He also learned that some individuals from Burns' family had come to talk to the victim at his place of employment prior to the shooting on the day of the offense. Beverly, the victim's mother, testified that she last saw the victim alive on Sunday before his death, which was Father's Day. Wow. The victim did not mention anything about planning to go to Florida with Burns. Miss Sylvie testified that if the victim would have had such plans, he would have mentioned them to her. This testimony, coupled with the testimony that Burns and the victim owned a van, cast suspicions on testimony that the small red rental car was leased for a vacation trip to Florida. So they were claiming that that's why they rented the car. Certain defense witnesses also provided testimony pertinent to the state's case against Wright and Burns. Retired school teacher Crystal Plott testified that she and Michael, Wright's 6th grade teacher, and had known him for 25 to 30 years. On June 23, 1995, she was in the vicinity of Highway 36 when she heard an ambulance. She followed the ambulance to the crime scene. When she arrived at the scene, she saw a body lying on the highway. A few minutes later, she saw Wright drive up to his brother Eric in a gold-colored vehicle. Ms. Plott spoke to Wright and did not act any different other than occasions when she spoke with him. Let's see. At approximately lunchtime, Burns appeared in her mother's home with a gun in her hand. Miss Wright asked Burns, "Girl, what's wrong with you?" Upon hearing this, Michael jumped up and Eric came out of his room. Burns responded, "I just shot my husband." When Burns was asked where she had shot the victim, she answers, "In Abita." According to Miss Wright, her daughter was beaten up in the face and everything. Miss Wright drove her daughter to the Covington Police Department. Michael and Eric left with the baby to check on the victim. Miss Wright told Eric to take the baby to someone to keep for her. Miss Wright indicated that she did not take the weapon with her and that she went to the police department, but told the police of his presence. Subsequently, upon request, the police retrieved the weapon and brought it to the police department. I'm trying to... On cross-examination, the state accused Miss Wright of concocting the story about going to her daughter's home to explain away the fact that her daughter came by her home and conspired with Michael to kill the victim. Miss Wright denied the state's accusation. She conceded, however, that she had not mentioned the telephone call from Cheryl McGee when she testified before the grand jury, but explained that she had informed counsel of the state of this call. I'm trying to find... it's just, I guess it's just a lot in here. And I don't know if I can help you. Okay, so here's another appeal. A possible motive for Burns' crime other than revenge for abuse was presented on testimony from Robert, the victim's attorney. On May 12, 1995, Mr. Bailey finalized drafting the victim's will. He testified that the victim... other than abuse was presented based on testimony from Robert Bailey, the victim's attorney. On May 12, 1995, Mr. Bailey finalized drafting the victim's will. He testified that the victim did not approve the initial draft of his will, explaining that it had not been acceptable to his wife, and made changes to leave his wife more under the will. Mr. Bailey found it unusual that the victim's wife never appeared to have her will drafted because, in his experience, young married couples usually appeared to make wills together. Mr. Bales identified State Exhibit 38 as the final will of the victim. Certain other testimony concerning the offense also was presented. So they're saying that maybe it was the will, that's why she did it. Testified that on June 23rd, 1995, at approximately noon, she was at her home on Highway 36 cleaning dishes at the kitchen sink. So here's a witness. She looked up after hearing a noise, which at first she thought was a car accident. She saw two people fighting near a white van and a little red car. She then saw one of the individuals go to the red car and retrieve a gun. The person held the gun like halfway out the car door and fired. She commented, "Boy, he really wants that person dead." She had no telephone, so I don't know. Does that mean that it was her brother that shot? She had no telephone, so after waiting for the shooter to leave, she flagged down a pickup truck and asked the driver to alert the ambulance and the police. She did not see the faces of the two people and could not determine their skin color. When asked if she had seen right at the crime scene, she answered no. She testified before the grand jury that she thought that the two persons were male because they were dressed in jeans, but conceded that it could have been a man and a woman in jeans or two women in jeans. The only time she see Burns was before the grand jury in the courtroom during trial. I can drop the links in the description. I guess if you take the DA's word for it, it's that, I mean, the bottom line is it does seem that she rented a car. The question is, did she kill him or did her brother kill him? But they planned on it together, and they shot him in the back and in front of the kids. And she's still claiming that it was she, or saying things that are just not true. And I think that's kind of like the bottom line. It was premeditation. And well, what do you think? Do you think that she still should have gotten a second chance? With that, I'll let you go.